Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever webinar session hosted by the Mindoro Biodiversity Conservation Foundation, Incorporated, or MBCFI, in partnership with the Malampaya Joint Venture Partners and with the support from Oceana Philippines. This is a 4-day online seminar that focuses on the state of Philippine biodiversity. As we all know, the Philippines is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of biodiversity. With its geographic location and archipelagic setting, the country has high species diversity and an endemicity. Human disturbances have caused a significant decline in the country's biodiversity, making it a hotspot. Now, the more we impart our knowledge about the importance of biodiversity, the more people will care and protect them and their natural habitat. And think about this, the less disturbance and loss in biodiversity, the fewer chances of adverse effects in our ecosystems, and reduced potential outbreaks like the coronavirus now. Now, this month of May, we celebrate the month of the ocean with the theme, Para sa Tao, Protected Areas for a Protected Future, and International Day of Biological Diversity. With the theme, Our Solutions Are in Nature, MBCFI has organized a series of webinar sessions. So the online seminar consists of a series of topics on the current state of Philippine biodiversity, on terrestrial, marine, and freshwater, and the threats to biodiversity, focusing on invasive species. Now, just a friendly reminder, before we start, please take note that this session will be recorded and posted on MBCFI's FB page and website. Now, before I introduce to you our first speaker for our topic today on State of Philippines Terrestrial Biodiversity, may I remind you to send in your questions in the comment section for the Q&A portion after the talk. Our speaker today for the first topic of this webinar series, the State of Philippines Terrestrial Biodiversity, is MBCFI's very own Vice President and founding member of the board. She is a professor at the Animal Biology Division, Institute of Biological Services, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. She is a herpetologist who specializes in the study of reptiles and amphibians. And yes, she is popularly known as the snake lady in UP Los Baños for her expertise in handling and studying snakes. This remarkable lady finished BS Zoology in UP Diliman and took her graduate studies in UP Los Baños, MS Zoology, and PhD in environmental science and management, respectively. She has been teaching and researching biodiversity and conservation for more than 3 decades. She has published 15 full journal articles, 4 notes, abstract, 9 books, manual, books, and chapters with all editorial assignments. She is part of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, Red List Global Amphibian, and Reptile Assessments for the Philippines. She was a program manager and co-editor of the Philippine Biodiversity Conservation Priorities, a second iteration of the National Biodiversity Strategic and Action Plan. With great honor, let's all welcome Dr. Leticia E. Afuang.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to face you today to present to you a glimpse into the Philippine biodiversity, which I think could not be easily covered within a few hours. Knowing that this topic is broad and the audience is a variety of people from all walks of life and different states, I try to make this material as simple as possible, notwithstanding that I also tried to put the substance in. So I hope you will like my presentation, and this will be very much informative, even for the elementary, high school experts, my colleagues, and my students also. So without further delay, let me share my slides to you. Okay, do you see my slide? Please thumbs up if you do. Are you seeing my slide? Okay, thank you. My task is to present the state of Philippine biodiversity, but yes, I would like to emphasize that it is not sufficient to do so in 20 or 30 minutes. So I'll try to show you only a glimpse into what it is in the terrestrial biodiversity. So the Philippines, oops, how does it go? It doesn't move. Am I running my slide? Wait, sorry. It's not moving. Ah, there. Okay. So here, we start off with the definition of biodiversity. This means bio means life, diversity means variety. So it is the variety of life forms in ecosystems, in different types of habitats, in different conditions and different areas. Biodiversity is equated to the Philippine language or the Filipino language as SAMU'T-SARING BUHAY, while wildlife, which is somehow interchanged with biodiversity, is buhay ilang. But the thin difference between these two is that wildlife are those living forms in their natural habitats, whereas biodiversity is inclusive even of those organisms that are taken into domestic and taken as materials for agriculture. Meaning, biodiversity is anything that has life on the face of the earth, and wildlife are those that live in their natural habitats. Take note that biodiversity has three major components: the genetic biodiversity, the species diversity, and the habitat diversity. Genetics, these are the ones that we find in our cells and which are inherited from generation to generation. Species are those that we classify into forms and groups and try to memorize when we do biological studies. And habitats are the variety of ecosystems and types of forms of landscape and natural conditions in which we find the species and even the diverse distribution of living fauna. Take note also that biodiversity is inclusive not only of the flora and fauna. No? It includes also the fungi. It includes the protists, which many of them we do not see, and the minuscule or the non-nucleated organisms, which we call the prokaryota, or the eubacteria and the archaea. Most often we forget these things that we really do not see, but in fact, they comprise a very, very important component of the ecosystem. The fungi, for example, are right there, distributed everywhere. Without them, we might be having a lot of zombies in the face of the earth because the fungi are the ones that are responsible for decomposition and responsible for nutrient cycling for the balanced sustenance of the earth, so that all the nutrients and minerals that every living organism would need goes back through a repetitive cycle to provide sustainable supplements or supplies to what is needed by the living organisms. For example, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle. It goes to an intricate and yet beautifully balanced system so that life is sustained continuously, such that the need of one becomes the excess of another. For example, we are so much in need of oxygen. Plants release oxygen in photosynthesis. They do not need, they are so much in need of carbon dioxide. We do not need much of carbon dioxide. So the plants absorb the carbon dioxides that we produce, while we are so much thankful for the oxygen that they produce for us. So it is an interlink of relationships in specific areas of habitats. So aside from this, let me just bring you into the benefits of biodiversity. This is, again, a very simplified form. Consumptive benefits, as classified, are those that we immediately take in or which are used up or depleted sometimes if we overdo the collections. And these are the things that we encounter or use in our daily lives, such as food. We have the examples here. And also the medicine. most of the most effective extracts of medicine or even vitamins and food supplements that we have come from the biodiversity that is around us. We also have consumptive benefits in the form of raw materials, and these are just examples. Of course, the leather of the snakes are not approved, but yes, these are being used and they are expensive. So this is a product of the bees, and these are boards that come from trees, which are examples of raw materials. There are many uses of biodiversity. In fact, without biodiversity, where will we be? We have nothing to feed on, we have nothing to use because it is all made up of biodiversity. Non-consumptive benefits include clean water, clean air source, energy, power. I don't have a dam here, but the hydrologic power is there. The clean water that we take in, the cool waters in the river systems. Even the non-consumptive benefits would include the other components of the living system, such as the dispersers of seeds, the pollinators, the keystone mutualists, the biological indicators also. Every activity of a component of the biodiversity is actually so beautifully and intricately designed that that activity is to the benefit of others. Well, it is a challenging question. If it is so, why do we find threats? I'll answer that question later. But everything is so designed so that everybody will survive sufficiently and in a balanced manner or in a balanced system. Other non-consumptive benefits are the oceans which are much bigger than our land and which houses millions and millions of life systems and life forms which provide us a lot of things to our benefit. And also it provides ecological health systems and services. This is just an example of a portion of mangrove which also helps us in carbon sequestration. Okay? And also soil processing. And then also, in addition, we also have ecological services provided by our forests. The better the canopy, the thicker the forests are, the more effective we are in carbon sequestration and also in balancing oxygen production. Aside from that, if you might think about the high mountains and the forest areas of Sierra Madre, for example, many typhoons coming from the Pacific region would supposedly come in strongly. But what is more heat actually are the Batanes regions because they are not, they are exposed. But we know that the Sierra Madre mountain range has been the wall that most often broke down strong typhoons that could have attacked Cagayan Valley and Sierra Madre and Isabela and those the on the eastern side of the Philippines. But thanks to the mountains and biodiversity and forest systems of the Sierra Madres, because the people there and the biodiversity there have been protected. Other non-consumptive benefits would be the aesthetic and ethno-cultural values where people take pride in the things that in the biodiversity that they own in their country or in their regions. Like for example, we are so proud of our Philippine eagle, which represents the Filipinos, flying high, strong, mighty, and difficult to capture except by a gun. And then you have the Kalaw headdress by the Ifugaos, the tinikling dance is derived from the movements of the bird, the tikling, or the rails. And then we have the Tarsiers, which is a pride of the Boholanos and Mindanao people. Tamarao, pride of the Mindoreños. Cebu Shama, pride of the Cebuanos, and many more. Every country has its own pride or symbol of pride in the biodiversity that they are taking care of in their own countries. Other non-consumptive benefits would include the the benefits that we derive from knowledge and values education. When we use this, the concept of the interrelationships of biodiversity with one another, the intrinsic respects of life, the intrinsic survival systems in which biodiversity or natural living organisms would only get from their environment for survival, no more, no less. That is in itself respect for other biodiversity life. And teaching our children to value their habitats as well as to conserve them and to love them is a very, very effective tool of education and teaching. We also have recreation and tourism. These are the endemic, you have here in the picture, the endemic ducks in Nauhan Lake. No? And we have here our very, very long coastal areas, coastal lines, which is also our pride. That is why we are the perlas ng silangan. That's why we are the pearl in the Orient Seas, because our coastal areas are pearl white and beautiful. People would love to come and swim in our coastal areas. And of course, our conservation value is very, very high. We compete with the rest of the world about in terms of endemicity and uniqueness of our flora and fauna. That is why many of us, like in the Mindoro Biodiversity MBCFI, we move and we advocate for conservation and protection of these natural biodiversity treasures that we have in this country. Are you there? Yeah, I hope you can give me a thumbs up. Okay. Now, the Philippines is one of the very few 17 megadiversity countries in the whole world. What does that mean? If you put together all of these 17 megadiversity countries, what they contain in terms of biodiversity altogether is actually 70% of the total biodiversity of the whole Earth. They have the highest values in species diversity, species richness, as well as highest values in endemicity. What I have here is a picture of the biggest biodiversity, or the number one biodiversity in terms of area, that's Brazil, and the Philippines, which is in orange, which is the second to the smallest biodiversity areas. Why do I put that there? This is to emphasize that despite the small area of the Philippines, it competes in terms of diversity and value and endemicity. Look at here. Look at this one. The area of the Philippines compared to Brazil is only about 3% of the total area of Brazil. However, if you look at the fauna, compare the fauna count, the Philippines has 17% of fauna compared to Brazil. The flora is 33, one-third of the total of Brazil can be equated to the total of the Philippines. Whereas if you would look at the area, it's only 3.52%. Endemic fauna is very, very high. It's almost 50%. Endemic flora is more than 30%. See how a small country such as ours can actually be compared to the biggest megadiversity country, which is Brazil. I would like to emphasize the Philippines is a place which we should value because it has high richness in its natural treasures. So in here, I have placed here the biodiversity data that has been posted by the Wildlife or Biodiversity Conservation Society of the Philippines, just to show you we are in a continuous current count, and this number changes almost within a year's time. It changes, it continues to increase because of new discoveries. Our students, our researchers, we ourselves go out to the field and find out there are new undiscovered biodiversity things there. And so we name them, we describe them, and those numbers increases. And so for the birds, we have from an original, when I started off counting, there was only about 585 birds. Now we now have 683 species of birds. Reptiles, we just had about 200 plus. Now we have 365. Fishes, we have 344. And then we have the mammals, we have 214. And the amphibians, we have 116. It started off when I started working on the amphibians, that was only 98. And of course, the endemicity is very high. But there is a value there that shows the threatened species. This is the sad part of the story. Despite the richness and the values of the endemic species, many of them are also threatened. We'll discuss the threat later on. As for the flora, we have a lot of counts here, like the angiosperms. These are the flowering plants. And then you have the gymnosperms. And then we have the ferns, we have the bryophytes, we have the algae, we have fungi, slime molds, on water molds, and we have lichens. I would like to emphasize here, there are still undetermined numbers here, especially for the algae, for the fungi, and the lichens. We need people who are going to do research on this. We need people to specialize. We are encouraging a lot of students and a lot of potential scientists to take their interest in these areas, because there is still so much to be known and to be discovered among these undetermined sections of our biodiversity. This is only in the Philippines. We don't have as many scientists as much as we have out there to discover in terms of our biodiversity. So the Philippine biogeography is very, very important. It has been recently analyzed using the Pleistocene aggregate island complex because of the high diversity of the organisms. It is used to be, it is actually divided into faunal regions, which is based on the original form of the Philippines, which in the past was a bigger conglomerate of islands because water was shallow for about 120 meters. But after the Pleistocene and water rose high, these islands became separate. But this is the original form of the Philippine Islands. I wish I could show you the movements of the island, how it came to be the Philippines. But I just would like to emphasize that the Philippines is actually a melting pot. Its constituent islands came from various sources, from the upper North China region, from the Borneo Sulawesi region, from the Australo-Asian region also, and came to be the Philippines. That is why every island in the Philippines has its own uniqueness. That is why studying biodiversity in the Philippines will always have to go back to the Philippine biogeography. That is why the Philippines is so enticingly rich, because its organisms are diverse. And so with the movement of the water, you can see these lines here, which now emphasizes the Philippines as it is now, the archipelago separated by deeper waters, and each of those islands are now distinct from one another. What makes this special is that even in the smallest islands that you might see, like Sibuyan, Camiguin, Batanes, there are a lot of unique species. Island endemic species are found there. So let me just give you a rough and fast tour into the Philippines' most popular and endemic species. We know we have a lot, but I'll just give you a rough run through. The Philippine eagle is what is our national icon. It is what we are very, very proud of, but it is also what we are exerting on to conserve, because it is very difficult to conserve. It requires a beautiful and large strands of forests in order to be happy. But our forests are threatened. So it is critically endangered. Next, we have the Philippine cockatoo, which is also critically endangered. Oh, by the way, with the Philippine Eagle, we thank the Philippine Eagle Foundation for working on it and leading for its conservation. For the Philippine cockatoo, we thank the Katala Foundation for leading the conservation efforts for the Philippine cockatoo. And of course, the research leaders on Philippine Eagle and Katala are actually rightly awardees. And you have the Visayan warty pig also, which is also critically endangered. We have the Philippine crocodile, Crocodilus mindorensis. Again, I do not want to miss. I would like to thank the Mabuaya Foundation for taking the lead for the conservation actions for the Philippine crocodile. And of course, the Tamarao, the Bubalus mindorensis, in partnership with the MBCFI and the DNR, we take the lead in the conservation of the Tamarao in Mindoro, where it is found only. It is an island endemic. The Philippine tarsier, the Tarsius syricta, is another threatened endemic species found in Bohol, Dinagat, Leyte, Samar, and Mindanao. My most favorite frog, which I called the Barbie, it was I and Kyle who named it Barbie because it is called Barbarula buswangensis. So it became very, very popular now as the Barbie. It is found only in Palawan and in Busuanga Islands. So Palawan and Calamianes. It is rare. It is unique. There are only two Barbarulas in the whole world. The Busuangensis in Busuanga and Palawan, and the Kalimantanensis in Kalimantan. And then the Cebu Black Shama is the pride of Cebu. It is found nowhere else in the world. It was once declared extinct, but it has been rediscovered. And then the Guayabero, which is the Bulbo Psittacus lunulatus, which is a beautiful, noisy bird. Nevertheless, it is endemic. And then the only endemic duck species in the Philippines, which really is a beautiful, amazing sight at the Lake Nauhan when it migrates there between February to May. And this is ours. This is endemic. This is found in the Philippines. And then for the plants, we have the Nepenthes alata. We have the Philippine flying lemur, also found in Mindanao, Samar, Leyte, and Bohol. Have you seen this in person? Have you seen them live in form? You should. You should find them. Of course, if not in the natural habitats, maybe some parks would find them in understudy and in captive conditions to save them. And then we have the grace monitor lizard, the Varanus olivaceus. The study of monitor lizards, by the way, as far back as the 1990s, started with only 2 species of monitor lizards. Now we have 11 species of monitor lizards because of the trainings, education, equipping of students, and more people getting engaged into herpetological studies. And we know what we have originally grouped it into 2 species. There are now more than 10, and they are unique. They are endemic in the places. The Kalayan rail is one that we could accredit to the Isla Foundation, led by Cynthia Layusa and Carl Oliveros. This was discovered in Kalayan Island. Of course, I went there. And this is one rare, vulnerable rail that we should be able to protect in that island. And then we have the Palawan peacock pheasant, which is found only in Palawan. This is very much subject to illegal trade and capture, but we hope we can protect them. The Strongylodon macrobotris is really beautiful. If we can only harden its petals and make it a real jade, but it does look like a jade, and this is endemic. And there are new discoveries of new Strongylodon in the Philippines. There is now purple, Strongylodon, and there is now Gonzalezi is one, and there is now whitish one. And then we have the wax plant or the Hoya crassicaulis, which comes in. There are specialists in Hoya now because of they are tiny, and yet they are enticingly beautiful. And then we also have the elegant teeth, which is, don't ask about the common name. This is the Pardaliparus elegans. It's tiny, it's cute, but it is, again, an endemic species. The Philippine nightjar is also one which you will encounter at night if you want to see more of it. Although at this point, you can encounter it also while it is asleep because this is a nocturnal bird. And then the Hydrosaurus postulatus is the Philippine sailfin lizard. And then we have the Philippine pit viper, the Trimeresurus flavomaculatus. We should have placed here the Trimeresurus macgregori or the golden pit viper, which is also very, very rare and endemic. And then we have the magnificent sunbird. When the sun strikes on its feathers, it shines. That's the Ithophyga magnifica. And then we have the Draco Spilopterus. It is very enticing to watch their behavior, but they are endemic to the Philippines. And the Philippine pond turtle, this is very, very much unique. Found only in the Philippines, Sebenrochiella latensis. So after having gone through those beautiful biodiversity that we have, we look into the threats. Of course, they are subject to threats. I followed an acronym to make it simple. H is habitat loss and degradation. I is invasive alien species. P is pollution. Another P is population growth, and O is overexploitation. And examples of habitat loss and degradation, of course, would show you here in the map areas where there is extensive deforestation and illegal logging. These are the illegal logging hotspots in the Philippines. After having used up many of the white areas, there used to be forests also. Take note of Palawan. It is able to protect much of its forest. Take note of the Sierra Madre. It is now subject. It is the only remaining strong range of forest, but we are starting to cut down the trees there. Now, there are already hotspots there. And the forest cover by major island groups, if only to compare, in Luzon, we have more open areas of forest. The blue ones are open areas, even in Mindanao, even in Visayas. Meaning, we have cut trees there, the canopy is not closed. We only have the closed areas in small portions or in small percentage compared to the open areas. Most of these ones in blue are actually second growth forest or transformed forest already. In 1990, in the 98, the ESSC came up with data and mapping data on the Philippine forest and showed us how forests are being used or being cut down or how they get deforested. Take note here that in that small book that they published, they said that if we do not stop or we do not control deforestation, within 10 or 15 years, we will have forests of only 6% remaining cover, remaining forest cover. And so they have shown this. The forest cover has been reduced continuously. And so we have now a very small percentage of remaining forest cover. Degradation loss, habitat loss and degradation is also caused by mining or mining destroys the land, mining destroys the soil, and so mining destroys the forest as well. And then the next one would be the invasive alien species. We know that the Rhinella marina has occupied the whole country. We know that the golden apple snail has been a pest to many of our farmers, to most of the farmers in the Philippines. The rats, the introduced rats has been a problem even when I was still young. And then the tilapia, although it is being used as food now, well, at least this one has found its use to the human food consumption. But look at how in the Rhinella marina has spread to the Philippines. You see that only few islands have not been attacked or is not occupied by the Rhinella. But mind you, in the whole world, it has already been spread out. It is a problem in many continents all over the world. It comes from South America and it came to the Philippines in 1954. The population growth is another problem. With increasing populations, we transform land systems or even forest areas into human habitats. And yeah, our population density continues to increase. And we know that as populations grow, more land is transformed into human habitations. Pollution is also a big problem. What I was able to put here is only solid waste and water systems. These pollutions have caused lots of death, not only in turtles, but many life forms which are um, able or which thought that the garbage, especially plastics, are food. So there were even cetaceans whose mouths or whose bellies are full of garbage because of what we have been throwing into the ocean. These are just examples. This data here shows us daily use and annual productions in terms of single-use plastic only. We also produce pollutions in air, like industrial waste through air and also cars and transportation. Overexploitation is a big threat. We collect either by cutting trees or even collect illegal trade, pangolins, turtles, snakes, everything is collected and exported. And many of them are collected illegally. And now there is a new industry coming up, and which is being addressed by the traffic, which is cyber trade. Okay, they trade through the Facebook or the website. But the government is so much aware of everything about this. The government is aware that the Philippines is rich, that the Philippines needs protection, that the Philippines needs to be equipped so that it can protect its natural biodiversity richness. And it took its actions. One of its actions, of course, is continuous international collaboration. It also continues to support research. It continues to partner and support scientists in doing substantial research. And it partners with NGOs, non-government organizations, just like MBCFI, so that there is furtherance of research, especially on those areas that need much for discovery, for study, and for analysis. Also, the government came up with national environmental conservation policies, just like the NEPAS Act, the law on bioprospecting, the IPRA or the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, the Philippine Clean Air Act, Wildlife Protection Act, the Philippine Clean Water Act, and the latest so far is the National Environmental Awareness and Education Act. And an addendum to the 9147 is the DAO that has now updated the list of the threatened species in the Philippines. This is done by producing the Philippine Red List Commission and the Philippine Plant Conservation Commission. These are the group of scientists who, by their research and by their knowledge and the information that they have acquired, have decided and put into place those organisms that need highest priority in conservation, following a system similar to the kind that is taught to us by IUCN, but not exactly the same because we have our own uniqueness in terms of data and study. We came up with our critically endangered, vulnerable, and so on group. We have also other threatened species and our other wildlife species listings. And so the latest action that the government has done is, or the most comprehensive action that the government has done to put together its efforts into conservation, is actually the PBSAP. The first PBSAP came out in 1997, and from that, the government had its guidelines on how to prioritize on conservation actions in the Philippines, which areas are more important. And this was enhanced and iterated in 2002, where there was more data to put together and there was more data that could come out because there is now a mapping system. Priority areas in the Philippines, priority areas for conservation in the Philippines has been identified in the PBCP, or the Philippine Biodiversity Conservation Priorities. In that book, we have seen the thematic priority areas for conservation. And that served as a guide for continuing support for research, as well as education and extension in various places of the country. This is also the one that served as a guide for NGO and government partnership to take areas of specializations. Like, for example, Philippine Eagle takes its full research on Philippine eagles is in the areas of habitats in Mindanao and Sierra Madre. The Catala Foundation takes charge, or more or less takes leadership, in Palawan. No? The BUHAY Foundation takes lead in Isabela, where the discovered crocodilus populations are there. MBCFI takes lead in Mindoro, and so on. The Philippine Island Biodiversity Conservation Foundation takes charge in, or takes lead in, the Visayas region with the leadership of Lisa Paguntalan, and so on. There are a lot of us now, Filipinos, working together, and we in the education group in the academe are encouraging, training, honing, molding our students to take lead in conservation in the areas where they have been born and where they come from. And so we have now the third PBSAP iteration, which is now the guide. This now serves as the guide for conservation in the country. No? This is in the leadership of the BMB, the DNR actually, through the BEBMB, Biodiversity Management Bureau in Quezon City. And yeah, if we need details of guide, the data is very rich. The information contained in the third PBSAP is comprehensive and very, very much detailed. It includes in the conservation actions that it has laid out in that action plan. The Philippine Development Plan is considered. The sustainable goals, 17 sustainable goals of IUCN is included. The IKI biodiversity targets is included. This is a result of many years of working together with scientists as well as other government NGOs and specialists also. So the PBSAP framework goal, final goal, is actually human well-being. And you have the improve biodiversity status and enhance biodiversity ecosystems as its target outcomes. The outputs would be here. You have increased awareness, enhanced capacity, BD integrated into the development plans, ecosystem functions are restored, BD friendly livelihood and technology are used, and then there is reduced pollution, there are sustainable practices, and there are controlled IAS or invasive alien species. The interventions are either direct or or enabling intervention, such as the restoration of ecosystem functions, the promotion of biodiversity-friendly livelihoods, strengthening of law enforcement, and then the enabling interventions goes into communication, education, and public awareness, capacity building for biodiversity management, biodiversity conservation related research, strengthening policy for biodiversity conservation, and promotion of biodiversity-friendly livelihoods and technology. This plan, this goal for the country is actually an integrated collaboration of the many agencies that you find below, the one that I have placed in there. I am still within time. Yeah, please tell me. Now, I just want to show this to you. But this is what is contained in the Philippine Biodiversity Strategy Action Plan from 2015 to 2028. I will not go into the very details of this, but I would like to emphasize that our country, especially with the lead of DENR and BMB and in partnership with our scientists, are trying to achieve this together. Also with our non-government organizations. Zero extinction, sustained natural forest cover. These are all found in the NBCFI. In fact, our target goals are more than the SG because the SDG is only 17. We have 20. No? So this is what we are dreaming of, and this is what we are targeting as a country. Now, as individuals, we have our roles, no? And as agencies, we also have our roles. It will be easy to get and find where you can move in these different action goals of that has been set by the PBSAP. Details, as I said, could not be cannot be placed all in this short presentation. But I hope your minds have been opened and you are much more aware that we are a very rich and unique country in terms of our biodiversity, but our resources are highly threatened. And yet, on the third part, we have hope. If we can work together, individuals coming in, agencies working as partners, government giving full support, with all honesty, with high pride and high value for our country, we can protect the Philippine biodiversity. So with that, I say thank you very much. Hello.
Really amazing getting a glimpse on how the species look.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Aleti, for that excellent presentation with amazing facts on the current status of the country's terrestrial biodiversity. It was truly amazing getting a glimpse of how these species look. And now, everyone, we see the state of the Philippines in terms of terrestrial biodiversity. We asked you earlier to post your questions online, and now it's time to answer your questions. Dr. Aleti, are you ready to answer the first question?
I can.
Okay. Ma'am, for the first question, we have from Miss Monique Gibe. What is the effect of COVID pandemic in our biodiversity now?
Oh, that's a very, very interesting question. I've been asking that from my graduate students. I've been challenging them. The effect of the COVID into the biodiversity, I think the question is, how did the COVID become a pandemic? What have we done to allow the COVID to happen? Because the COVID coming in, it is, we have all read the articles about the possibilities of spillovers from the bat going into the pangolin and then going into the Wuhan market and then taken in by the people there, and then spread out to become a pandemic. The possibility, the effect of the COVID on the biodiversity is not measurable. We have not paid attention to that as of this time. We have paid attention to the impact of the COVID to the human population. And we know that we are suffering right now. Economies have stopped. We have been quarantined in our homes, and we cannot really move as freely as we used to do. We have not even gone out to study if the COVID has affected a bat, or has it affected a snake, has it affected any other of the biodiversity. We have not done much about it yet. But there has been studies that have been saying that had there been a respect to biodiversity, have there been a controlled way of getting or making use of the natural biodiversity, those virus that are inherently living in the systems of, let's say, the bat, did they all die? There was no pandemic in the bat if the bat was the carrier, right?
Yes.
So it must have been in synchrony. It must have been a mutualist or symbiont with the bat. They live together, just like our E. coli that lives symbiotically in our gut. You know, the bat may be living symbiotically with the virus. If we did not touch the bat, that should not have been transferred or maybe gone to the pangolin. If the pangolin was not there, then nothing should have carried the COVID. And if that pangolin was not touched by the humans, no human must have been infected. So the answer to the question is, what have we done or how have we affected the biodiversity? What we have done is we have gone beyond the barriers of respects for other wildlife. We have over-collected them. We have not handled them properly. If there is a proper quarantining, there should be no individual organism that should be exported without having been quarantined or checked for its cleanliness. But many of these are smuggled. Many of these are sold out to the market through illegal trade. So we have posed our own threats to ourselves. I hope I answered that question. Yeah?
Okay. Thank you for the answer, Dr. Afuang. You are right. It always boils down, respect wildlife, never touch, eat, or hurt them. Now, in relation to the first questions, we have a question from Mr. Ed Ibanez. With the present COVID-19 pandemic, what do you think are the positive or negative effects in general to the Philippine biodiversity wherein people are in lockdown?
We have seen a lot of them in the Facebook. I like the air pollutants are lessened or are gone. The sky is blue. The rivers are cleaner. The oceans have come to still except for Korea making a bomb testing during the early part of March. They did a testing bomb somewhere out there. But there are also cetaceans that have been seen to come nearer to coastal areas. I think the wildlife has become happier. Why? Because their habitats were not as disturbed as it used to be. Less tourists disturbing, less hunters going out, maybe, hopefully, really, less, maybe there is less smuggling, less collection, less pressure. And even the trees found it very happy. I mean, they found themselves happier because of, less disturbances. Maybe what I am looking at is if we could only come to a point of analyzing how much can the environment or the habitats can contain in terms of disturbance. And of course, we have to heighten our conservation efforts, especially for the threatened organisms. Give them more space, give them more time to recover, give them more protection. In fact, what we really need is to respect life. As I have said earlier, other components of biodiversity attack other organisms for only one purpose. They need food. After being full, after they have been fed, they keep quiet and they don't simply attack for nonsense. It is only the human species that attack and collect and collect and collect unlimited way and very disrespectfully. That is how we become. I did not place it there, but one of the highest threats, the biggest threats to biodiversity are the humans themselves. It is us. We produce the pollution, we convert the land, we do the collection. Who does all of the hippo? It's the humans.
Okay. I think everyone will agree if the virus had one positive effect, it let Mother Earth breathe for the first time. And yes, it made Mother Earth happier this time. Thank you for the enlightenment, Dr. Afwang. And if you have any last messages for our viewers, Dr. Letty, what would it be?
What was that?
If you
If
have
I
any
have,
Yes, if you have any last messages for our televiewers, for our viewers, what would it be?
okay. This beautiful earth was created as beautifully to provide for all our needs. Life goes on in a beautiful, intricate way, and life can go on if only we can respect one another. What seems to be worthless or useless or seemingly just like taken for granted biodiversity, if we abuse them, it's going to get back to us. We are now suffering the pandemic because of our own irresponsible disrespect of biodiversity. We should learn how to respect other organisms' lives, not only ours.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Letty, for joining us. And now may I call on the Executive Director of MBCFI to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Letty Afwang. Ms. Grace Diamante?
All right. Thank you so much. Despite the ECQ, Dr. Letty was able to find time to share his.
She's mute. Mute.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. Despite
Despite
the
the
ECQ,
ECQ,
Dr.
Dr.
Letty
Letty
found
found
time
time
to
to
discuss
discuss
thoroughly
thoroughly
the
the
state
state
of
of
Philippine
Philippine
biodiversity.
biodiversity.
And
And
we
we
thank
thank
you,
you,
and
and
we would
we
like to
would like to
present the
present the
certificate of
certificate of
appreciation
appreciation
to Dr.
to
Letty
Dr. Letty
Huang in
Huang in
grateful
grateful
acknowledgement of her
acknowledgement of her
time and
time and
expertise
expertise
as our
as
own
our own
online
online
speaker
speaker
focused on
focused
the
on the
state of
state of
Philippine
Philippine
terrestrial
terrestrial
during the
during the
four-day
four-day
webinar
webinar
session.
session
held from 27 May to 30th of May 2020. So given this 27th of May 2020, thank you so much, Dr. Letty Wang. So this is your certificate from us, and to all the viewers and listeners, thank you so much. And watch out for tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Letty, again, and thank you, Ms. Diamante, and thank you, everyone, for your time. And we hope to see you again tomorrow at 3 p.m. as we focus our discussion on Philippines marine biodiversity. To register for tomorrow's session, please click this link and share it to your family and friends. And if you want to donate to our cause, to MBCFI, you may do so using GCash or QR code flash on the screen right now. Stay safe, everyone, and hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.